Right, hello.
Hello.
So, Richard, you've been with us since September full time, a bit longer than that, as part of the Fresh Air family. Just explain.
Part of the family, yes.
Very much part of the family, part of the furniture and the family all at once. What's your background? Talk about where you came from.
My background is marketing. So I'm not a producer, I'm not a content person, I am a marketer. So I'm the evil marketing person that sat in the corner and brought audiences to things and made money out of things. So I started at The Guardian, then I went to the BBC, and which is where we met.
Yeah.
You were my sport producer, so you made lots of radio trailers for me. That's where I met Michaela Hallam and got drunk with her quite a lot, which was good fun. And we did lots of drama ads together, which was fantastic. I then moved from the BBC to the corporate machine that is Sky, and then I went and spent a lovely long time at Yahoo and all the various different bits of Yahoo and all the CEOs we had. And that was brilliant for me because that was right at the kind of edge where, you know, Facebook was being invented and where I got to try out a lot of stuff like live music and live sport, and yeah, got to play with a lot of things. I ended up being a marketing director there, managing global marketing, which was fantastic. Then I went freelance, and which was really good fun to really hustle again, and started working for Fresh Air, and I loved it. The people were absolutely brilliant, the culture was fantastic, and podcasts are where it's at.
You've actually been a Fresh Air client twice,
Yes.
separately.
Yes.
So we've got a bit of a history together, but it came out of our bringing you into Fresh Air, came out of sort of realization that we were making stuff that we were proud of and that we were enjoying making it, and the clients were happy. We couldn't necessarily quantify why they were happy and couldn't necessarily bring in the skills amongst a set of producers to be able to really talk about that properly and really have those marketing conversations. So that's where your skills were. What was your first impression of the podcast market when you first started working with Fresh Air, and has it become more sophisticated since?
Oh, well, I hope it's become a little bit more sophisticated, but I mean, my impression, it's a little bit like the early days of the internet in terms of no one really knows what good is. Data is all over the place. You have Apple and Spotify, which are very kind of like big palaces that measure things in their own way. And no one really talks very clearly about definitions and about data in a very structured, very clear way. I think that's one of the things I've really brought to Fresh Air is just kind of like, let's just measure stuff properly, let's test and learn, and let's, when you have a set of goals, everyone knows what's going on, everyone has a set of clear kind of like guidance in terms of like what good is going to be, and it frees people up to be creative, it frees people up to make great podcasts because everyone knows what the direction that people are standing for. I think, creatively, podcasts are in a brilliant place, but from a business standpoint, it's almost the Wild West, and I'd say that there's still a huge amount to go and a huge area to explore, which I look forward to exploring quite a lot over the next few years.
And brands are on a journey with it, aren't they? Because I will freely admit, when we started focusing on podcasts, we made one or two proper vanity projects for people. We didn't know why they were doing it. They didn't know why they were doing it. It was just because podcasts are cool. We can make something that sounds fun. We'll all have a laugh along the way. The business problem with that was you then struggled to get them to Series 2 because you couldn't prove the effectiveness of it. There's more and more tools coming on now, and part of your job is to really just kind of track that, isn't it, and understand how the market's developing, as you say, from a Wild West to hopefully something more of a mature place to be.
All brands want is attention, and attention is what podcasts deliver in absolute spades. And, you spend your entire time now being bombarded by messages, whether it be notifications on your phone or posters or just, flying planes with banners. And what a podcast gives you is that brilliant, 25 minutes of attention where you're getting really properly into a story. It's why people love podcasts so much. It's why people feel really emotionally connected to a host or a particular subject matter. They get really in deep and involved. And it's a really incredibly special place to be in your marketing plan. You can do your social videos and your YouTube videos, which engage people for 20 seconds, but being able to kind of immerse people in the subject and immerse people in your story is really special.
And what are those key metrics, do you think? If you're a marketeer, so if you were a client,
Okay.
what would your emphasis be on in judging whether something is a success or not in the podcasting world?
Time spent would probably be my number one thing. Downloads, just in terms of that pure kind of like understanding the number of people who are listening to your podcast and number of people who are engaging in your podcast. But yeah, conversion rates. I love a conversion rate. No one looks at them properly, but it just shows the measure of quality in terms of the content that we're producing, and shows the quality versus like a picture of a pineapple or something. So you have that real kind of sense of like the podcast is a proper quality content. But time spent, and I've got this fun stat that I'm using now, which is kind of cost per minute of human attention.
You love that, don't you?
Oh, I love it. It was a really good number, and it just brings across again that kind of idea that a podcast is a proper immersive plunge into the story of your brand.
And where do you think the market is? Do you still feel like you're coming in at the bottom of an exponential curve when it comes to podcasts?
No, I just think it's moving really quickly. It's really fluid. I think there is a lot happening in the space. It's getting increasingly busy. A lot of people are coming in. There are lots of middlemen dotted around as well. And there are lots of tools that are being kind of bandied around as well, some of which are incredible, and some of which you kind of go, oh, you're squeezing this little bit here that doesn't quite work. I think key for me is just keeping up to date with everything as much as possible, understanding the value of it in terms of your whole marketing mix, keeping trying stuff as well. We use Fresh Ears, our podcast, and this is Fresh Ears, to kind of test stuff out as well, to see what's working and what's not, before we kind of roll it out to our clients. And yeah, it's a really good fun place to be because people are trying stuff and it's incredibly creative.
Around the time you joined full-time, and we'd been developing it for 6 months or so beforehand, we announced the partnership with Pacific Content in Canada, which is enormously exciting. What do you think that brings to the Fresh Air table?
I think for me, it's about a global centre of excellence. It's brilliant for me because I've got some very good, very intelligent, clever Americans and Canadians who are sat there kind of like being a really good sounding board for me and understanding whether they've got the same frustrations or the same insights. But it gives that real centre of excellence, so people know that they're getting the best of the best with us. We think the US is probably about 2 or 3 years ahead of us, and so they can almost like give us that view from the future. And really help us to understand. The US love data as well, and love a kind of like a sales message. So they really understand how important it is to build your own show and to create a really creative podcast that will bring your brand story to life.
Richard, as well as being our Director of Marketing and Growth, which is obviously an important role, the other role that you perform for Fresh Air is the Director of Pressing Send on the Email. Could you perhaps enlighten us as to what that entails?
So that entails me being by myself at 6 p.m. on a Thursday night, lonely, cold, it's dark, and Neil WhatsApps me saying, email done. And the moment is simultaneously thrilling and also just a bit scary, obviously, because I need to understand like all the things that are happening with the email and what's going on. And then I go onto MailChimp and I put it all together. I spent a long time looking for the black and white picture that appears at the top of the email. That's probably the most, emotional part of my week, but it's also the most fun.
What do you look for in a great photo?
I look for kind of humour. I look for a weird person. I look for sort of 1950s postcard kind of style, and I try and look for a tenuous link that Neil often drops in a kind of like dog or exercise or some weird theme that I can kind of like hit upon, which is quite exciting for me. Yeah, I put it all together in MailChimp, and then that starts the spagging, which is when Michaela basically tears apart our entire email, makes lots and lots of changes, all of which really improve what we're doing.
SPAG stands for spelling, punctuation and grammar.
Yes, and it's really, we realised that we'd been sending out emails that had spelling mistakes for about 6 months before she got involved. So she's incredibly helpful and incredibly valuable. She also does a subject title that is going to be really compelling and much more interesting than my rather boring corporate insighty marketing subject titles. And then once everything's approved and, we probably have a few kind of back and forths for about 4 hours while my wife waits downstairs waiting to watch her latest rom-com. And then I kind of put my little mouse over to the schedule button and then I press schedule. And then then it wings off to the MailChimp gods and it gets sent out every morning at 9 a.m. on a Friday.
What's your favourite edition of the weekly email? Number 59 I thought was a classic.
Number 59. Okay. My favourite one I think was this January where I put a really good picture of a kind of a fat guy kind of sort of doing this kind of gym image with this kind of rubber band as he was doing exercise. That was my favourite one when we talked about how we were trying to lose weight after Christmas and step away from the quality street. That was my autumn favourite. That had a really good balance of humour, podcast insights and random stuff and tangents at the end, which we all enjoyed.
Thank you very much indeed.
Fresh Air.